page of this judgment, which I also going to share, on paragraph 119, because the DCI and completely refused to investigate my complaints in the wisdom of Justice H.I. Mundu, and directed as follows. Having found that the second respondent did not fully act or investigate the petitioner's complaint lodged with him, I direct him to act on the same and forward his findings to the first respondent within 19 days. During the 19 days, the first and second respondents shall not charge or arrest the petitioners, save for the above. Then I find no merit in this allegation. Mr. Speaker, I want to share, because this document, and goes to that, is to, I'm bringing this to demonstrate and to show that even when people read or questions are raised, Mr. Speaker, the criminal justice system was somehow are not willing to listen to my complaints, and I am just waiting for the appropriate time. So I'll give this one.
Yes,
share with the committee.
Chairman, I'm seated next to the nominee. I'm requesting that so that we don't go into a serious health crisis, tell him to breathe normally. He looks nervous. Tell him just to breathe. I'm hearing a lot of...
And Linturi, are you nervous?
No, I am not. I am not, Mr. Speaker.
You are not nervous.
I'm not. How would I be nervous? These are my colleagues. We've been around together for a long time.
Can you, clerk, get the document and the reference, make copies and circulate? Go on, Linturi. You know, we are almost halfway. Your time. Go on, Linturi. You know, we are almost halfway. Your time. And we are still skirting around two issues. To make progress, Honorable Linturi, Honorable Wandai put it to you that you forged documents to obtain two loans, 500 million, 100 million. Your retort is that you didn't, and you have given a document to buttress that, right?
Yes, I have.
Go to the next issue.
I'm trying to get another ruling from Justice Okwani, where...
on the same issue?
On the same issue.
Okay.
Because this was a constitutional petition that stopped my arrest, and the finding of the judge was this did not investigate this matter. The other one is where the judge has clearly pronounced herself on the issues of the forgeries that is alleged is talking about.
So did the court say you forged or you didn't?
I did not.
Okay.
Yes.
Give the ruling. Just give the documents. The clerks will run through and assist the members so that we make progress.
Point of information, Honorable Speaker.
Yes,
Yes, you've got 90 minutes. You've spent 40 minutes explaining all sorts of cases. Just say, I was not charged on this one. This is the decision, and here is the judgment, and then we'll be able to look at it when we have when we retreat. And also, Honorable, through the Speaker, if he's guilty of anything, it will catch up with him even if he's minister. So I think for now, let him explain to us. Let's focus on, I want you to tell me what you're going to do as Minister of Agriculture. I want to know if you're qualified to be Minister of Agriculture. I want to know that you're going to transform the agriculture industry in Kenya. That's more urgent. The other items are before other competent institutions.
Chairman. Chairman.
Yes. Carrier.
I totally agree with Deputy Speaker, the Vice Chair of this committee. if we continue like this, and you had alluded to that when you started speaking, is that almost half the time is gone. And what we really want is to know, much as this is part of what we are supposed to be looking into through this committee, but I think it is also important that we also consider on other matters, as Sholei has indicated, so that we can be able to see the suitability of the candidate, or mostly on matters to do with agriculture. As I also agree that what is going on is also part of what we are, but at least as she says, this is the case, this was a judgment, pass it, without stories, again, because it's going to really give us...
Ferdinand?
Linturi is a friend of mine, I want to declare that, but given that Chair, and he has confessed himself publicly, that he has over 35 cases, and he's tired of these cases. We are looking for somebody who is free, and that means that, so Linturi, you may not have the time and the energy, but they'll keep on coming up to do what you wanted to do. Tell us how you going to, with 35 cases. You know, it's too much. And you are saying yourself, you want this to get rid of this.
Order, honorable members, I don't want it to be a free for all. Because we have had a very good sequential process of interrogating nominees. Honorable Linturi, what you need to do, this is not a trial court. We are not going to establish whether you attempted to rape or not, whether it has been withdrawn or not, whether you are framed or not. The question was put to you by the Honorable Ndai on the rape charges. You have given us documents of withdrawal. This committee will not inquire into exactly what happened. We have a court document. He asked you if you forged documents to secure 2 loans. You have said you didn't. And you have given us documents. Move on to other questions that were asked of you, so that we can make progress.
To the university issue, then we can...
Then you asked about the university, and you are supposed to have uttered a degree from India. You have put only 1 degree from the University of Nairobi. And he alleged that you had running arguments with the same university about the same degree. Yeah, if you can answer that, then we can move on to other questions that the Deputy Speaker asked you, and give other members an opportunity also to...
Speaker, I didn't want to disrupt the proceedings, but
yes.
I want to pick from where you said, let us advise our colleague, Honorable Linturi is our colleague, that we are not in court, Honorable Speaker, where you can produce all those details and volumes. Maybe he's gotten used to that 35 cases and court. This is just a vetting process. Just bullet, and we proceed.
To the extent that they touch on his integrity, he is at liberty and is obliged to furnish us with documentation that you look at. But as to his innocence or otherwise, there's another agency that can deal with that. We can make inferences on these issues at the end, but we have no capacity to say whether he's guilty of this or not.
Speaker.
Yes, Dawood.
If you allow me to comment, I think we are probably taking the nominee a little too far. If we ask him a question, he replies, let him give us those documents after the sitting, give it to the clerks. But in a matter of 35 cases, Honorable Wanyonyi is talking about, that is neither here, neither there. He just mentioned it.
It is actually the nominee himself who has walked too far. Yes, and I had told him that to restrict your answer to the questions as they are being asked, and you'll see we'll move very smoothly. So if you finished with Honorable Ndai, talk about the degrees, come to Honorable Sholei, then I give another batch of colleagues to raise issues. We have about 20 of us, each one itching to ask you something. You know, agriculture is the bedrock of every lively activity of every individual in this country. Those who don't farm still eat what farmers farm.
Chair, can I interject?
Yes,
I was wondering, because we already have 1 degree and we can see it here, and we have other important matters. We can allow to tackle the other questions, and then he'll give that other document later.
No, the question was asked, he has to answer it.
Yes. Yes. Mr. Speaker, let me answer this question. Mr. Speaker, I'll give you a document which you'll be able to peruse as asked. And the issue that there was an issue with the University of Nairobi. And when my studies were discontinued, were that I was doing my Masters of Law. It is not the undergraduate course I was doing. And I had been admitted to pursue a Masters of Law. And Mr. Speaker, I was registered that time.
Let me make it very easy for you.
Yes.
Honorable Linturi.
Yes.
Do you have any dispute with the University of Nairobi that is alive over your LLB degree?
None, Mr. Speaker.
That is it. Number 2, have you ever uttered anywhere a degree from India?
No, Mr.
Do you have a degree from India?
And Mr. Speaker, yes. And the documents are here to support that. This matter has been canvassed in court in 2 cases, in 3 cases actually, in 2017. There are all documents here. And I will not be able to mention on that because the same matter again has been raised. The hearing for this case is on 4th of November.
Issues around your
Yes.
Indian degree?
Yes.
Hold on. Issues around your Indian degree are in court.
Yes.
Is that the reason why you did not attach that disputed Indian degree?
That is not really, Mr. Speaker. It's also because the documents that I attached are the documents I'm able to access. One of the issues where I raised
That's exactly what I'm asking you.
I
that you attached the Kenyan degree from the University of Nairobi because it has no issues.
It doesn't have issues.
The matter rests there. Answer other questions.
Speaker, how does it rest, really? When he has said that he has got an Indian degree, the certificate must be with him, the degree certificate must be with him somewhere.
He says,
yes,
if I got him right, he has an Indian degree, it has issues around it, the issues are in court, they are active and therefore sub judice, and we are not here to inquire into his degrees. In any case, the possession of a degree is not a requirement for him to be a minister. But if he has a disputed degree and the degree is found invalid, it goes down to his integrity. Yes.
Yes.
That is the only issue that is available to you to pursue.
That's what I'm pursuing actually. The issue of integrity.
Question, a very clear question, and I want a very clear answer so that we make progress.
Yes. The issue is, we wanted the Honorable Linturi to confirm if he ever held a degree from an Indian university. He has said yes. And I'm asking, can we see a copy of that degree certificate? I am being told we can't see it because the matter is in court. That's what I'm finding very difficult. Yes.
Mr. Speaker, you know, I also explained the circumstances in which I find myself and why even other certificates are not there. There is also a court order here that bars me from accessing my own house, where on documents.
Yes, Speaker, I give up.
Yeah, it is here. That's why I say that in many cases, Mr. Speaker. And if I may read, restraining the respondent.
Hold on, let him respond.
So, Mr. Speaker, even as I sit here, there are documents, my titles, my logbooks, my everything I can't access because there is a bar.
Honorable Linturi.
Yeah.
There is an article written by Alot called "The Witness Who Talked Too Much."
Yeah.
If you have an Indian degree, say yes. If you don't have it here, say you don't. The reason you don't have it, you are barred from accessing your premises where it is. We leave it there.
Yeah, I don't have it here.
Yes.
Yes.
You are just volunteering and helpful information.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. Thank you. Let me go through this question.
Those are the questions by the
Yes,
Deputy
yes,
Speaker.
that's what I want to get to.
Yes.
But this document is important. Mr. Speaker, thank you. Let me get to the
Honorable
actual
Speaker, I'm
business.
beginning to think that the candidate is actually avoiding to explain to us how you're going to transform the
No.
agriculture industry in
Let
Kenya.
me get there.
Because you're spending way too much time on the other questions that are not even relevant to this particular docket.
But Mr. Speaker,
Mr. Speaker,
I'd ask a point of order.
going to Mbo's Sholei's question that the 25-year-old boy asked, I want to agree with her that agriculture, Mr. Speaker, contributes to almost 60% of our GDP. And to transform this country, we require to seriously invest in agriculture. To change this country and to make sure that each one of us as Kenyans is comfortable, we need to re-engineer our ways in how we conduct ourselves in the field of agriculture. Mr. Speaker, and when I speak about agriculture, is in horticulture, in apiculture, in livestock and everything else. So, Mr. Speaker, first of all, what I want to do, considering that agriculture is an evolved function, agriculture, where I will sit, if approved by you as a minister, will basically more deal with the issue of policy. Crop husbandry is in the domain of our county governments. The first thing I want to do is to have a serious sitting with the governors, and possibly, because I believe in teamwork, I believe in building proper networks, have also a meeting with their CEC's agriculture to see how together we can be able to transform agriculture. Mr. Speaker, I know we have a problem in this country. I know the youth can easily be employed if we were to do our agriculture right and correctly. And I'm happy Mbo's Sholei's children is really interested in doing agriculture. But if you were to speak to very many young men and women, and whose mindset I am willing and ready to engage to change, is that some of them have taken agriculture as a form of punishment. Many of them are afraid of that, and many of them, because of failure for a guaranteed way of trying to assess what incomes or what you can be able to predictably be able to assess from a crop, have made it very difficult for many of our children to engage in it. So I want to pursue possibilities of how we will be able to encourage our young people and everybody else to get into the farms and do it. Mr. Speaker, I want to invite, including all the members of parliament here, we cannot be crying of lack of food when we are not doing it by ourselves. Before we get out there to cry, there is famine. What is it that we are doing as leaders from the family level to feed ourselves first of all? I want to ask, to call for a candid, robust discussion on how each one of us can be able to feed himself and run away from the reliance of going to markets to buy food when you are not sure where that food has come from.
The question she asked you, the Honorable Linturi, is that what are your plans to ensure that farming becomes more profitable and farmers are assured of a predictable income?
Mr. Speaker.
Then combine that with a question from Ichungwa that your docket is the highest in employment multiplier effect. What are you going to do to ensure that agriculture becomes a major job creation engagement? Ichungwa, that was your question, right? Yes. And how you will dismantle milk cartels in the sector. Take a minute to answer those three questions.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, we now have to see on how we can hand value to our agricultural products. Those that are doing, for example, dairy, we must know how we can be able to engage them from their own farms, from an area where probably you can be able to bring in farmers to pull together. See, for example, collect enough milk, see how we can have processors that can be able to hand value to our milk so that we're able to produce other products from processed milk. That we will be able to hand value. Farmers may be able to get good return from their investments in agriculture. Mr. Speaker, if we were to be able to seriously subsidize on farm inputs, fertilizer, seeds, we will be able to bring the cost of production of our food, our food from whatever cost it is, because government would have taken some bit of cost by providing subsidies. That we may be able to encourage the farmer to create and see more value from his produce, from whatever he does on a daily basis. Mr. Speaker, I also want to say that if we were to make sure that there is good return, and if we were really to ensure that once a farmer is able to predict what price he may be able to get from the market, then we'll be able to encourage. I want to, Mr. Speaker, to adopt the technology so that I can be able to link markets. And from a platform, when we are sitting by application of e-technology, one can be able to check and know if I'm doing carrots and I'm in Meru or I'm in Washingishu, what is the going price of a kilo of carrots in Kisumu, in Nairobi, and whichever other market. So that way, one may be able to take his produce on how, or to any market that will give him the highest return. And finally, Mr. Speaker, I want to discuss with the county governments to implement the warehouse receipt system. The warehouse receipt system, Mr. Speaker, if implemented, we will be able to hold our food and our produce and be able to sell when markets or the prices of food are good enough for return of investment. Ichungwa raised a question on how we will be able to deal with the cartels in the ministry, and we intend to dismantle them. Mr. Speaker, I also want to say that I will want to ensure that when I get to the ministry with your approval, God willing, then I want to have a Kenya farmers database. The Kenya farmers database will be able to show me or tell me how many farmers do we have that are doing milk, that are doing cabbage, that are doing maize, or whatever type of a crop that there is. And that way, even when we can get to making subsidies to the farmer, then we can, with precision, say which farmer is going to benefit from what subsidy, whether it's seed, whether it's fertilizer, and that we also will require an e-voucher system so that in partnership with our National Cereals and Produce Board or agrovets, we can be able to make sure that person that really benefits from the subsidies that we'll be giving as government are the really people that require that particular support. To increase productivity, Mr. Speaker, and for value, we also may have to go an extra mile to educate our farmers on what best crop grows where. And with that kind of data, then we will be able to maximize on productivity and avail information to our farmers so that you do not plant barley in an area that requires you to plant rice. Or if you just wake up in Meru and decide how to plant maize here, yet Meru cannot do very well in that particular ecological zone. So getting information to farmers will be critical. Moving along with them will be very important, and customer education and training will be very critical if we really have to produce maximally and farmers get really value of their produce. Mr. Speaker, to deal with cartels, as Ijung was saying, these cartels are the same are the cartels that when you give subsidies of fertilizer, they wait for the fertilizer, buy it, store, repack, and then sell those at exorbitant prices. We will require, Mr. Speaker, to really map out or be able to get the numbers that are supposed to benefit from these subsidies, and this I intend to use an e-platform where we will have a record of all the farmers that we are talking about, so that the final beneficiaries of our subsidies, our knowledge of the information that we want to disseminate as a ministry, then go to the right people.
Thank you. I'll take 5. So note them and answer them. And this time, let's be conscious with time. And members, 1 question each. Junet, Owen Bayer, Robert Mbui, Ferdinand Wanyonyi, Murugara. Everybody will have a chance.
Whether you have ever been to a seminary, whether you have been enrolled to a seminary one time, but more importantly, what plan do you have to the collapsed sugar industry, like Moroni, Chemeil, Sony, Mumias, and Nzoia companies? How do you intend to revive them?
Thank you, Speaker. The President, in his wisdom, has separated the Ministry of Agriculture and Irrigation. But we also know that statistics show that grain-fed agriculture has failed this country, and irrigation is the way to go to spur agriculture. But it stands now, if approved by this committee, you'll be Minister for Agriculture, but the docket for irrigation, for which you will depend on largely to produce food, is in another ministry. How do you intend to sync that so that your hands are not tied? Given that the President in his speech said that we intend to increase irrigation to 1.4 million in 3 years. How would you reconcile that? Will your hands be tied such that you will not produce food because you say irrigation is not in your hands? And also you find that there are some high productive areas in this country that have not been looked at positively by the previous regimes. Farming in coconut, in cashew nut, in Biksa at the coast has not been given the due attention that it is supposed to have. And areas like coast have not been helping in growing the GDP in this country. And yet there's high potential in those areas. Look at these 2 questions, nominee. How do you work in the Ministry of Agriculture to support this country to grow the GDP in agriculture? Thank you.
Robert?
Yeah, thank you, Speaker. You know, Kenya is grappling with the drought, and a lot of Kenyans are going hungry now. So this is an extremely important docket, because the person who holds that docket has to deal with the issue of food security and ensure that Kenyans don't starve to death. Now, I want to, and you know, Chair, the issue of integrity is also critical in helping us determine the suitability of a candidate to any office. Now, in the 11th Parliament that I served with the Honorable nominee here, while he was serving as MP for Igembe South, the nominee presented a petition to members of Parliament to sign for him so that he could remove the then CS for devolution on the scandal that was rocking this country of about 1.9 billion of NYS. And members of Parliament did sign that petition. Mr. Speaker, I was one of them because he convinced me, and there were really weighty issues. But on the day that this petition was to be read on the floor of the House, the nominee did not show up, and did not show up for quite a while after that. And when he resurfaced, that issue seemed to have been put under the carpet. Maybe because we do not want a CS that might also abandon farmers. Maybe he can tell us why he abandoned members of Parliament.
Ferdinand?
I'm laughing kidogo because I was also in that parliament, but I didn't know those details. Mheshimiwa, you talked about the warehouse receipts, and I think you don't understand the concept. I want to give you the light on the warehouse receipts. Is where the farmer takes the goods to the warehouse. House, and is given a title deed from India. To be able to do business, so that people can be able to get the receipts and do business. Thank you.
History contemplates repealing the agreement and also abolish the authority so that it can deal with individual crops instead of dealing with crops lumped together for purposes of production. Marketing and distribution. In your own estimation,
it was coming from that side. Mr. Speaker, I think the sugar industry plays or employs very many people, and is a source of employment for young people and others that work from that particular end. And when I interacted with the sugar companies, when I was the chairman of public investment, most of these sugars companies were making losses. I think it is the time, Mr. Speaker, I think we really require a serious discussion, because the investment of government in a number of these sugar industries is huge. We've had bailouts by government for these sugar companies a number of times to understand how best we can revive the sugar industry. Mr. Speaker and Chairman, I would ask Junet to become part of this discussion because you may understand this area better, but I am told over here that there has been discussions on how to privatize these companies for maximum productivity and for profitability. If that is the direction we may end up going, then Mr. Speaker, and since all stakeholders will be involved, and if we are to go that way, of course, Parliament will be involved, then at the personal level, I wouldn't have any problem because I will not be there to dictate. I will only be guiding the process, and it will be all inclusive, all consultative, so that we have one common ground on how we need to revive this important sector in our economy. Mr. Speaker, I think when asked how I will be able to produce food when the irrigation docket is not in my domain, and I want to say that government works collectively. I am sure, and we cannot succeed without water, without going to grow food without water. And anybody that cared to listen to my boss's speech yesterday during the Mashujandi celebrations, he has offered or inviting people to partner to come up with around 100 dams that will be able to assist us in providing water for irrigation. I want and I believe that because Cabinet decisions are collective, I will personally be able to speak to my sister Alice Wame because she has that our country is food secure because our reliance on food, our rain-fed agriculture, Mr. Speaker, is not anything that we can really rely on. An interesting question was also raised by my good friend Mheshimiwa on my integrity, or whether I will run away and leave the farmers or leave the farmers alone. Mr. Speaker, even as we discuss that issue, I think for those that have been bunge with me, because I think we've served the longest, you have served the longest in the House, and I think I'm the second longest serving. I think my record also speaks for itself in view of the committees that I chaired and the recommendations I've done as a committee, which went to the extent of indicting ministers when we sat in the same house as ministers. And the latest being my investigation committee that I chaired, investigating the possible loss of money from the Ministry of Education by the acquisition of the Ruaraka land where the country lost 1.5 billion. I don't waver. I am incorruptible. You can only persuade me, Mr. Speaker. So to get to the draw of this particular matter, because that matter, Mr. Speaker, it is true and a lot of support in the House. And Mr. Speaker, those that were in that parliament, when all this happened, I came to the chamber and rose on a point of order under personal statements. And I documented every step that took place, what went on, who called who, where that letter was signed from, and that matter isn't. Unless if you allow me, Mr. Speaker, I can mention. You know, Mr. Speaker, this country you allow me to explain the circumstances.
Go ahead.
Mr. Speaker, for those that have never known, you see, when a gun is put on your head, and you understand when you have a CEO who is almost a terrorist, then there are many people that cannot withstand the pressure, the intimidation, and the threats that exist. I can tell you the letter to withdraw was signed.
To withdraw the motion?
Yes. Was drafted by one J. Muturi. The letter I was asked to sign, Njomo called, Speaker Muturi was called from somewhere. It was along, I think in Kilimani, was told, go back to the house, there's a letter is being brought to withdraw that motion. Jomo Gishaka, past 8 o'clock, delivered the letter to the then Speaker, J. Muturi. Those are the circumstances that I found myself in, and you know.
You signed the letter?
Mr. Speaker, yes. Yes, that's it. And the President was there then. So, Mr. Speaker, that is the situation, that is the condition. And that is from that time when my relationship and him went sour. Because that thing has really tormented me. I've spoken about it, but members continue asking. They may not have known, just like all these others were all organized and planned by his agencies. Lastly, Mr. Speaker.
You have the question from Ferdinand and Murugara.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. The warehouse system, receipt system was passed. It's a law that is in this country. It's supposed to be implemented by the county government. It is the county government that is supposed to license warehouses. And I said that we will not succeed if we do not work very closely with the county governments. And I will deliberately and intentionally work very closely with the governors. I even want to, I will be proposing laws to even operationalize this more, Mr. Speaker, because I believe food security cannot be a function of the national government alone. If crop husbandry is in the hands of the governors must participate in ensuring that Kenya is food secure. Mr. Speaker, I want to encourage and I want to propose to the governors when you sit down, and by use of this system, because this system, unless my understanding is different from yours, is where the licensed warehouse will be able to mop up the produce in those particular areas. And because I am even told this system is a serious support from some donors and other financial institutions, where if you have a problem, you may be able to be paid